them. I'd like to just say good morning and welcome, and thank you very much for tuning in to the Women in Leadership program, the SPASA Australia Women in Leadership program. In this webinar, I'm going to take you through a series of tips, tools and techniques so that you will better understand what it takes to be a leader in your business organisation. Firstly, though, I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and also a huge thank you to Lindsay McGrath from SPASA Australia, who's made this possible. He has an absolute belief that women in leadership roles need to get more of a voice, and as do I. I'll tell you more about me in a moment, but fundamentally what we're looking at is bringing a community of people together who are in a leadership role, particularly for women. This is relevant to men as well as women, but we want to acknowledge highly successful, accomplished people who have made a big difference to their business and their community, and provide you with a forum where you can voice your opinions. Let's share some of the successes, let's share some of the challenges that you find that definitely affect us on a daily basis, particularly when we're in a leadership position. I would like to share with you some quotes from Lindsay, if I could, before we get started. He has written that more women are making their mark as leaders in various sectors today. However, for many, it's still a long way to the top, for as women continue to face the various factors that will limit their full career advancement. It's imperative that we not only see but act to accelerate gender diversity in leadership space. Don't just agree with statements that gender diversity is important and needed. Let's support a program that's actually doing something about it and has been specifically tailored and written and put together for the pool and spa industry. This program isn't just for leaders, it's for all stakeholders who would like to be more productive. And when we talk about being more productive, it's around, as I said, it's not gender specific as such, but these are the common problems that we face as a leader on a daily basis in our organisations, particularly when we're in a small business. However, before I get started into that, you might also be wondering, a few things about who is Ros Ronning. I've been working in the leadership sphere now for over 25 years. I do like to say over 25 years because I don't like to say how long I've really been doing this sort of stuff. But it's an absolute passion of mine, and I believe that too many people go through life getting promoted or creating a business for themselves, but nobody's there to help them with what it takes to be a leader. How do I get upskilled? What are the skills and the tools and the knowledge that I need? That's where I've been very fortunate to be involved in lots of organisations, providing training and development, providing consulting practices, and helping people realise their leadership potential. I have many qualifications, from a teaching degree to human resources management, an MBA, and I'm a graduate from the Australian Institute of Company Directors. But I think the biggest qualification that I have is being on the ground, being part of the whole leadership focus that's become really relevant in our organisations in the last few years, particularly when people are realising that leadership is the one thing that we take for granted, but it's a lonely journey to be travelling. I've also had lots of experience working through the Asia Pacific region, as well as America and England and Africa. So I enjoy that opportunity to see leadership in its form in all countries, areas around the world. Why are we having a Women in Leadership program? As I said before, SPASA is actually committed to investing in their Women in Leadership program. There is a need for it. There's a need for it in every business and every industry. But what we're going to do is to be able to share best practices, and I'll be bringing those to the table. How we're going to look at this is along the lines of what are your needs? So today I'm going to be giving you some tools and tips and techniques. But as a result of this, and you will have my contact details, what I would like to see from you is what are the relevant things that are important to you. We do have a chat room on the side of your screen. If you do have questions, please let me know and type those in. I'm getting a few good mornings from people, which is lovely. Thank you very much. And I hope you can actually hear me and that this is all being quite clear. So the Women in Leadership program is fundamentally going to be running for this entire year, and we will have many events for you, which I will explain a few more of them as we go by. But really, why is it that we need this leadership program? Because it can be a very, very lonely place. And for those of you who might be in a small or medium-sized enterprise or might be the sole owner of your business, it can be incredibly lonely. Throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of women. I do a lot of executive coaching. And the key thing that comes through all the time is that we can be so isolated emotionally and geographically. Who do I go to? Who do I talk to? What if I do have a problem? And on top of that, I've got the burden of carrying the entire company or business that I'm in. So what am I supposed to do? And it's a very true thing. The higher you go in an organisation, the lonelier that road becomes because you can't talk to people the way that you used to. You're now suddenly the leader. You're the one who has the responsibility for everything, and the buck stops here. So that's why I'm so delighted in saying that SPASA is fully committed to this program. I'm going to tie into the end of this a little bit around resilience as well, because that's one of the key ingredients to make leadership work. So what's going to happen? I'll have this seminar going, and as I said, you can type questions in at any time. Please do that if they're relevant, or hold them to the end. I don't mind what you do. I'm very happy to share the questions that come up on my screen. This is also being recorded. So if you do miss out on pieces or find that there are information that you want to retrieve later, you will have access to be able to play the recording again. And also if, for example, if IT, which it tends to do, breaks down halfway through, then you're able to access all of the information later. So I'm talking about what is going to happen. And what I want to look at is about the two factors of leadership competence. You've got the doing and the being. And the doing is around your expertise, and the being is around your awareness of you when you are a leader. Two different, completely components of leadership. The challenge for most leaders is they love the doing part, and the being part is the more difficult part. So we're going to be looking very much at the being. I don't need to concentrate so much on the doing, because the doing is about your skills and knowledge and how you perform your leadership function. Things such as you might be going to a SPASA seminar to get updated on the latest things that are coming onto the market. It's all your previous experiences, your life journey through your career, education, everything that you've done. This is where your subject matter expertise falls. So these are the things that I'm going to assume you are good at, because that's why you're in the role that you're in at this point in time. And that's generally why people get to a leadership role, because they're very, very good at the doing part. The truth is the doing part is more about management, whereas the leading part is about being. It's about the behaviours and attitudes that are appropriate for your leadership style, and the flexibility or the adaptiveness that you have at any point in time with your behaviours. We will be delving down deeply into a lot of these behaviours, particularly around what it takes as a leader to get people to get the best out of people and the best out of yourself. And getting that level of awareness and starting to ask other people, how am I doing? What is my style like? Is this working? What's not working? In this forum, I think it's a really safe opportunity for people to post some of the challenges that they've had around their leadership style, or trying to get feedback or how you're going around that. So that's why we're going to be focusing on this area in particular. You do need both and we do need a balance of the both. You know, all management is fine, it keeps the cogs turning, but if we don't have leadership, then the relationships fall apart and we don't get the best out of our people. And if we're so focused so much on the being part of it, then the back end and the management can fall over too. So again, as I say, being a leader is quite a challenging role to play in any organisation. How is it going to help you? You'll get to share with other leaders. You'll get as many tips as I can possibly give you. If they don't appear on my webinars, then I will be providing articles as well, which will be published in the Splash magazine. And also, I will make myself available for emails, and I welcome emails from anybody who needs some help at any point in time, because this is to make you more confident in your capabilities, and that's what we're aiming to achieve. Today, you'll get some tips about how to understand the 4 big questions that help you think strategically. We're also going to be able to take away a map for how to map the engagement of your people in your organisation. And I'll probably give you some reading to do at the end of the session as well. The thing is, academically, everything that I'm going to be sharing with you is pretty easy to understand. So you will probably go through the phase of, well, I understand what I need to do and why I need to do it. However, if you don't get an opportunity to practice it, that's where this information goes back on to the, oh, that was nice, but I won't do any of that. What I'm going to ask you to start doing is to start practicing the skills that you learn in each of our webinars with my support at the back end, so that you can feel as though you can be competent in the skills that we're talking about. That's when you can take it to heart, because once you start to believe you can do it, then you can make it a reality. But it's this whole cycle that adults have to go through. We can see it, but we've got to play with it before we start using it and believe that we're any good at it. I'd like to talk more about the leadership in the more traditional view. There's a plethora of stories around great leaders in the world, and the majority of them, when you look at the articles that are written, are about men. And we traditionally hold our men in high esteem. And that's great that we do, but there's a plethora of stories we need to be talking about for women as well. There's a reason why women tend not to want to be in the limelight as such when it comes to leadership, probably because they're in the background holding everything together. But not taking anything away from our male leaders, we have some brilliant male leaders in the world, and will continue to do so. Business books, when you go into a bookshop and you look at any sort of business book about leadership, frequently it will have stories about the male leaders that we have in the world. There aren't that many that are written about famous female leaders in the world. That seems to be the part that's missing. But if you look at some of the photos here, you'll find that I've really only just scratched the surface of some of the famous women that have a leadership role. You don't have to be running a country. You don't have to be in charge of a large multinational corporation like some of these women, but you can make an incredible influence on the world through your leadership style. I think the one thing that makes it very difficult for women in a leadership role is that they also have multiple roles to fulfill. They've got the role of family, child rearing, keeping down the house, getting the housekeeping done, also, and then you're running your business. So multitasking is a big talent that we find in a lot of our women leaders. We've got a long way to go, but we are starting to get there, and we are starting to make headroads into the leadership sphere for women. But leadership, what is it? It is your ability to get other people to follow you willingly, and that's the big thing. Do people follow you willingly? We want to accomplish a purpose. That's our end goal. And we move towards those goals when we set really good goals and we achieve them, then we can make new goals for the future and keep it going. So the aim is with leadership to get people to want to follow you and to lead them well. Our role as such, as a leader, is really to paint a verbal picture, a big picture of what the business is all about. This is where I'm starting to move into the strategic direction of where you want to take your business. If we aren't able to articulate for ourselves what our big picture version of our business is all about, how will anybody else understand it? And this is a really important part that we need to start remembering. In my executive coaching, I do a lot of executive coaching for women and men. And one of the key, most frequently asked questions is, how do I start thinking strategically, Ross? Well, thinking strategically, I've tried to put it into the simplest way that we can possibly do that. And it's easy and efficient. What we need to do is answer the 4 W's. And there's an order, a very specific order here. And you've probably seen these before. They're not rocket science, but they're critical when we start to think about planning for our business and what it is we're trying to achieve. The first one is, where are we headed? Then, where are we now? What will it take to get there? And what support will be needed? The reason we start with where are we headed, if you can think where you want to take your business, what it is you are in business for, the fundamental reason why you're getting out of bed in the morning, that's important, because what happens is we open up the sky to all sorts of thinking, and that's important. If I start with where I am now, that will limit my thinking for possibility. So the where are we headed is incredibly important to give us blue sky thinking. To do this, though, we need to take time out. And I can hear you now saying, oh, but I've got so much on my plate. The business has to keep running. I can't do all things at the one time. Fair enough, I hear you. But that means that we will be firefighting and reactive to our business. What we're trying to do is to get you to say, at some stage, for example, today, we're taking time out of the business to sit back and look at the business. And I give you the view from the balcony and the view from the dance floor. So if you look at the view from the balcony, you can see everything. You can see all the other people in the audience. You can see everything on the stage. It gives you an opportunity to look back and say, okay, what's going on at any point in time? If I'm on the dance floor, which means getting caught up in the detail, I can't do that. I really get caught with what's right in front of me at any point in time, rather than standing back and looking at it objectively and saying, hey, this is what's going on. So taking time out to sit, to plan, to think, where do I want to take my business, is a critical element of success when we start to think strategically. Then we need to take a reality check of where we are now. So we're looking at the past, we're looking at the present, particularly in this one. And I do mean a reality check. What's working, what's not working? What are the skills and qualifications of my people and the knowledge that they have? Have we got everything that we need in our business? Have we got the full complement? If we don't, what's missing? What actually is missing? And then we go on to the behaviours and attitudes and we say, so do we have the right behaviours and attitudes in our business? If we do, fantastic. But are there any gaps? What are they? Can we name them directly? Those sorts of things, when we take that reality check, a lot of people think, oh, that's easy to do. It's really easy. I find that when I'm coaching people, this is the toughest one of all for people to answer, because they think down one line, okay, there's a particular skill we're missing. But when we unwrap that and look at that deeper and deeper and deeper, there might be behaviours and attitudes behind that. There may be other skills behind that we also identify. So a reality check, I think, is done well when you've got somebody to bounce your ideas off. But if not, it's a great idea to sit down with a pen and paper and just write everything down so that you know, okay, I've got the skills I need, or I don't have the skills I need at this point in time, or the behaviours and attitudes as well. And then we move into, and what will it take to get there? And this one I look at a little bit as saying, it's like a ship in stormy waters. If that compass is 1 degree off, we will miss our target. So we need to be quite accurate about what it is that it is going to take to get there. The missing pieces of the puzzle for you. And your job is to act as an interpreter for your people. So you need to translate the direction that you're taking as a business and link it to the business goal and the actions we need to take to make us successful. Because that's what we're looking at, to make sure that we get to the destination that we're looking at. And one thing we mustn't forget is that what support is needed along the way. Because when, as a leader, we are leading other people, they need to know they're in a safe pair of hands. They want to know that you know what you're doing. They want to have that clarity. Because the clarity is everything. If people really get it and they really know what's going on, it makes life so much easier. So as leaders, what do we focus on? We focus on success. Obviously, we're in business. We want to get some outcomes that lead to us being successful and pay the bills, and hopefully there's some profit there left over for us and a holiday or whatever where it is we're achieving or wanting to achieve. So classically, business leaders always seem to focus on the outcomes, the success factors. How are we getting there? What's going on? The truth is, if we ask the question, who delivers those success outcomes for us? It's our team. So really, the team are the ones that are delivering the outcomes for us and help to make us success. And if we've got a great team with us, happy days, we're doing really well. But if we're not getting the successes, then what's going on? And again, this becomes a little bit of a catch-22, where the leader might then look at the results more and start looking at the outcomes more and forget about where the focus should be. And the focus should actually be on the team. And what we need to do is to think that if the team can produce those outcomes and they come back to us automatically, that's where we will get our success. So if we create a great team, then the success will follow. And if you would like to read a book, it's old and it's outdated now. It's called Collins and Forrest, but the message in there is a book called From Good to Great. And the premise in there is that if we've got the right intention, we know what direction, and we create the right kind of environment for our people, then that success will follow us. So we don't need to just focus on the outcomes all the time. We need to focus on what we're doing with our team. So we need to create the conditions for success. And I would suggest to you that the biggest requirement of a leader is to get this part right. If we create those conditions for success, then our team will survive. So that's my challenge to you straight away. As a matter of interest, if anybody is keen to throw something into the conversation here, I'd like to just take a moment. On the right-hand side of your screen, you've got the chat room. If anybody would like to say what they think those conditions would be, just roughly, what do you think we need to provide our people so that they can be successful? And I'll leave you a moment to write something in if anybody does want to do that. Nicole Dawes is typing, which is great. There's Melinda. Oh, good. Everybody's starting to put some things in. Fantastic. So I've got support, set a positive culture, training. We need to know what success is for them. Love that. That's great. Yes, everyone is absolutely on the right track. Trust. Yes. A listening ear. Yes. Fantastic. Great. I'm very impressed. Thank you. That's wonderful. Because you've got it right. Fundamentally, this is how I put the conditions for success into broad categories. You've got a clear purpose, that clarity, understanding what success is for them. If we have a clear purpose, we know what it is we're trying to achieve, then people know what they're there for. If they can link it personally to them, this is why I'm here. This is what my purpose is. This is what my success is going to look like. And we have that discussion with them. That's one of the conditions that we need to put together for them or develop for them. The skills and experience. That might be, we might need to give them some more training. We might need to give them some mentoring. They might need on-the-job coaching. They may need to go to a seminar or two to learn some skills or to do some education for themselves outside of work. But what is it? What are the skills and experiences that we need to have? And we make sure that our people have got those. The behaviours and attitudes. We need to be clear about what behaviours and attitudes we want to see in our workplace. Um, Customer service, for example. But how do we describe it? How do we give that some kind of weight and clarity and understanding about what the behaviours and attitudes are that we want in our business? And the resources and the tools to do the job well. Now, I've only given you a high level on those conditions for success because beneath all of that is communication, and it filters into every single one of our conditions. We need to communicate, communicate, communicate. We think it's easy, we think we're doing it well. We are going to have an entire webinar devoted to feedback and coaching, and also SPASA is going to be conducting some one-day training sessions, and they will be listed, events will be listed in the Fresh magazine, plus we'll also have emails going to you. But fundamentally, we'll have a one-day session on communication so that you can communicate with your people effectively. We can connect with people to make them comfortable. We can create conditions where we have meaningful conversations and people buy into it. And that's what we're aiming for. So we communicate well around our purpose, our skills, experience, behaviour and attitudes, and our resources and tools. We achieve greatness by doing that. And what that does, it creates engagement. And if we have an engaged workforce, that leads to success. You might not see how at this point in time, but I'm going to show you when we dig into this a little bit more deeply. All the research, and there's an abundance of this, shows that if we have a really engaged workforce or team that work for us, the success will definitely follow. Because engaged people go above and beyond. Engaged people do the right thing for the right reason at the right time and the right way when no one's looking. And that's as simple as I can make it for you. When we have engaged people, the business flourishes, we flourish, everyone in the organisation flourishes. So engagement is one of the critical key stones in any business. Yeah, and we create that throughout the conditions for success. So, leadership globally. You may or may not have heard of the Gallup Q12. It's a survey that's delivered globally, and it's around engagement in organisations. And they have 12. I've just noticed that the 12th one isn't on there. The 12 questions are asking people fundamentally, what do they give, what do they get, and how do they belong in an organisation? If you look closely at the bottom, you'll see that over 1.7 million employees around the world have been asked this, have been exposed to this survey. And that's nearly 2,000 amongst 2,000 organisations, including Australia and New Zealand. And it's I've seen many organisations now call them focus questionnaires, staff surveys, all sorts of names, but fundamentally they're based on these things. The results, though, when we think about how engaged our workforce is, can be a little bit of a shock or a massive shock. 87% of employees are not engaged at any one time in their day-to-day work. Only 13% of our employees are engaged, productive and loyal. Now that's staggering by anybody's guess. It's just incredible. Because it means 63% of our people are disengaged for some reason, and we're going to look at those reasons soon. Big problem I see is that 24% are actively disengaged. Pardon me. And that means that you're paying them just to show up. That's fundamentally all you're doing. So if we think about it, lost days per year, as you can see there, someone who's engaged won't take sick leave. they won't. They'll keep coming to work. They don't take days off because, oh, they just want to go to the beach or whatever. They will turn up and they will keep turning up and they keep turning up. Disengaged people, you get around the 5 to 6, sometimes 7 mark for days off, which is coming up to their leave entitlement, because they kind of think entitlement is something that I can take, I want to. But our actively disengaged people will definitely play the system and will definitely take their full allocation of days off. Because why would I bother coming to work? So the next part, 80% of engaged employees say that they will stay for another year with people they're working with, whereas 31% of the disengaged ones, only 31% say that they will stay. There's reasons for that one too, and we'll share those too. The cost of replacing one of your employees is nearly half the salary, the annual salary that you pay them. I think when people sit down and do their figures, and if you look at turnover, if you do happen to have a bit of turnover in your business, the cost can be quite extraordinary, and it affects our bottom line. It affects not just the profit that we make, but it also affects our customers and the perception that the broader community have of our business. So this engagement factor permeates right through every aspect of our business. Pardon me. Now, how do we do in Australia? 72% of employees are not engaged, so better than the world average, but I'll repeat it, 72% of employees are not engaged. 24% highly engaged, productive and loyal, 60% disengaged, doing Twitter, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebooking, and the 16% actively disengaged are doing that and probably looking for another job at the same time. So we do have a problem with our workforce and the level of engagement that we have in our workforce. Now, the other thing I want you to realise is that with the disengagement, businesses can actually fail. They can actually completely fail because too much turnover, loss of knowledge, loss of continuity, there's no loyalty, and then it tarnishes your brand. But it tarnishes the brand of the business and it tarnishes your personal brand as a leader as well. So that's why this is one of the points I'm really harping on today, because it's about the amount of effort people put into their work on a daily basis. And we've got a set level, which is the effort you see the 2 red lines through the centre of this diagram. Below that level, that blurred line, that's a mixture of yellow and it's a mixture of green and orange. Below that line, that's unacceptable behaviour. That's unacceptable effort. They're not doing their job. They're not fulfilling their requirements. They don't achieve the task. The goals are not being achieved. Targets aren't being reached. So that's where we get fired because performance just isn't good enough. And this is how they're not putting the effort in. We say you're just not putting the effort in, and that's what it means. Then you've got the level of where, well, if I do, and this is what happens with disengaged people, not actively disengaged, but disengaged. They'll do the requisite amount of work to get through, to achieve the basic standards so that they can survive. You may hear them say things such as, well, I've got too much on my plate, or I don't have enough time, or whatever, numerous excuses that they will scrape through just enough so that they can survive. Yet, the ones that, this is where discretionary effort comes in. When we're engaged, when we're enjoying what we're doing, we give it our all. And when we give it our all, that's when we achieve great things. If you think about somebody who is an Olympian going for a swim, and when they go into the finals and they're lined up and going into the pool, they give their absolute all to try to get to the end as fast as they can. Is it sustainable long-term permanently? No. So it fluctuates. It comes in peaks and troughs. But when it's needed, your engaged people will definitely give their all, and at the time that it is needed. So that's what we're aiming for, because in a land where people are just surviving, we get compliance, and it's just simply compliance. You've got to stick by the rules. There's no love. There's no effort. There's nothing else in this for me. But when I give it my all, that's my discretionary energy. That's the desire to get to the next level. That's commitment. And I don't know about you, but for me, it's fantastic when people are committed because we can achieve anything together. We don't want people to just turn up and get paid. That's not acceptable in a business. It affects the performance, this level of engagement. So I want to take this again to the next level for you, where we've got the correlation between what happens when we've got an engaged workforce and the performance that happens at the level of performance. In the first quadrant, where we've got high performance and high engagement, we have engaged people. Engaged people, as I said, do the right thing the right way at the right time for the right reason, even when no one's looking. They thrill at being able to come to work and do what they do well. They get excited by their accomplishments. So when we've got somebody who's a good performer, again, if anybody wants to type in an answer, this would be great. If you've got a good performer, what do we do when someone's engaged? What classically in an organisation, I've got my star. This person's brilliant. They're achieving. So what do I do when they achieve? Give them more work. Classically, exactly. Thank you, Lindsay. And we encourage them, absolutely, Lee, we really do. So we encourage them, but then we give them more work because they're brilliant. It's like, wow, you're great at this. I'd like you to try doing this. And so we give them more work and then we encourage them. And then after a while, what happens? They're continuing to do good work. They're producing the results you want. We've given them lots of accolades in the past. So what do we start doing now? Paying for the responses. Sometimes we pay them more. Absolutely. Oh, hey, Julie, you hit the nail on the head. We expect a bit more, don't we? And then what happens with the feedback? It stops. That's right. The positive feedback tends to stop. It's funny how it works, but primarily they become disengaged. Sometimes they can go into other areas, absolutely, but they get to a point where it's like, why was I the star? Why am I here? Or what's my purpose in life? What's going on? As hard as I try for you, you give me more, you give me more, and you give me more work to do, but now you don't even seem to appreciate it. Now, I don't know if you've ever gone through this. Um, Ideally, sorry, Peter, I will actually share what you've just written. You show them a pathway to higher levels of management or different positions. It may not just be about the pay, but about wanting a higher level of responsibility via a higher level or role in or position in your business. Yes, we do tend to do that, and that's how people get promoted. Um, and yet, and I absolutely agree with that, and that's fantastic. What happens is we tend to then overburden them and still expect this high level of performance from them with less encouragement and appreciation for the effort that they've just put in. So it can get to a point, as Lee has just said, that she's got a staff member who feels they're being punished when they're given more work. They're being penalised for being efficient. And that actually happens more frequently than you would believe. And then what happens? We're loading them up, burdening them up, and then they get to burnout. Now, I need to describe the burnout person. This is the person who is brilliant at achieving their KPIs and their targets. They get rewards, they get bonuses, they perform well. They have got a very strong sense of pride in the work that they produce. They will keep performing even when they reach burnout. So the performance stays high, but the engagement level starts to disappear. How do you identify these people? I'll give you some really simple tip about how to recognise when someone's in burnout. They ask for help, but not forcefully. They might ask repeatedly and say, oh, look, I'm a little bit under the pump, and it might even be really subtle. You might even not think that they're asking for help. But I've just got too much on my plate at the moment. I'm getting around to it, but I've got this other thing that's on my plate that I need to get off first. You might find changes in their behaviour. They might walk in the morning and they used to come in and hi everyone and have a chat and happy, and you could see it on their face, and then they come in the morning and they're quieter and they just get straight down to work with minimal interaction around them. You do see sometimes that when it's lunchtime or coffee time and we're going out for a break, they don't come. They just sit and withdraw at their desk. So they start to withdraw emotionally from their colleagues and the world around them, and they become more insular, looking at just at their work. You can see in extreme cases of burnout, people start to take stress leave and more frequent sick leave. That sick leave is the big indicator. When they start becoming really quiet, they don't volunteer anymore, they're not enthusiastic anymore, and they seem to be really concerned all the time about how much work they've got to get through. That's a clear sign of burnout. Really trying to keep everything afloat, really determined to try and get to the end result, but they can't because they're just too overwhelmed. So we need to think about, how do we identify, have I got anybody in my group, in my business, that's going through this burnout? Don't come back to this, so I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. The next one I have is the player. Now, in this one, really highly engaged people. They love coming to work, but the performance isn't up to standard. In fact, they're the ones that like to skim under the radar if they can. They'll put a toe over the line to check, just how much they can get away with. There's a number of reasons for this too. One can be they're the right person, but they're in the wrong job, totally the wrong job. So they don't really know how to do the job, but they don't want to explain that they don't know how to do the job because they're having such a lovely time at work that they want to keep, they like the colleagues, they like you, they like being there. Another reason why somebody could be in the player quadrant is because they're new, brand new to the business. They don't have the skills yet. So very highly engaged, really keen to be here, but they don't actually have the skills to do what they're supposed to do on a daily basis. And often when we get new people into a business, even if we've got a big team, particularly if this happens, you'll find that players kind of get left to work it out for themselves. Particularly if we're busy, they work it out for themselves, and sometimes they're too frightened to ask you what they're doing right and what they're not doing right. Another reason, and you might not like this one, another reason why somebody will hit the player quadrant is because they're not getting feedback. They're not getting the right kind of feedback, or performance reviews, or meeting time face-to-face with their manager leader to determine how well they're performing. So the player will skip along merrily, having a lovely time, getting by with a minimum so that they can get the maximum benefit that they like out of their workplace. And it could be socially, that they just enjoy being there. The next one is our Rusty, and our poor Rusty is the one who has got low engagement and lower performance. This can be an interesting journey for a lot of people. I'm going to try, if I can, to use the pointer to show you what I'm talking about. No, I'll go back. Sorry, apologies. If we look at any of these, we've got the burnout, the player, and the Rusty. You might nearly experience some of those feelings on a daily basis. You walk into work, lovely, having a great day. You meet a customer on the way in who's absolutely unhappy, and you get a very hard time about that. And suddenly we go into burnout. It's like, oh, I've got too much on my plate. I just can't cope with this at any point in time. People can slip into the Rusty very easily from burnout. So this is a warning sign just here between the two, the Rusty and the burnout. The reason being, Rusty are the people who have tried hard. sometimes they get boxed. So they get boxed, that's all you're capable of doing. So you've worked in this role for ages, you're great at what you do, that's what we want you to do. And yet they want to get further in the business. They want to take on a new role. They want to try a new skill. But we don't encourage them or develop them with the skills particularly to be able to do that. The skills, the knowledge, the behaviour, the attitude to do that. So they get boxed in. And then the rusty is the person who just, after a while, quits and stays. I've had enough. Can't do this anymore. So they will quit and stay. And that's when we get into what we call performance management. So we have to give them very directive, be very direct with what their expectation is on their behaviour and very direct about the outcomes that they are to achieve. And often they end up on performance management programs. I have coached people who have been in the rusty area. I have been able to get them to go back to engage with a lot of work, time, energy and effort. But I do have to say the majority of rusty people I have coached over the years, I've helped them orchestrate a dignified exit from their organisation so they can find a new area to work in, a new career where they can show their true capability. Because it's very hard for a rusty to prove that they're capable once they've been branded a rusty. So just something to be aware of that can actually happen to people without you even knowing or realising or watching. I thought I'd put some diagrams together about what it looks like to be each of these. So unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but Steve, the crocodile hunter, is fantastic. He's about as inspired, high performance, high engagement, loved life, loved what he did and did it extremely well. I don't know if any of you can relate to quadrant 2, which is the burnout, where you're just swamped and it's want to put your head in the sand and just can't do this anymore, just way too hard. And then you've got Get Smart, if you can ever remember Maxwell Smart with his shoe phone. Thought he was very, very good, he mucked everything up, just couldn't achieve the outcomes he was supposed to be achieving. And then you've got your Rusty, who just can't stand the thought of having to do any of this. They're the 4. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to think of it this way. Your engaged person is empowered, excited, enthusiastic, energetic, and they engage others. They're the ones that we want to have in the business. Sure, they might slip in and out of this, but if we spend the majority of our time in the engaged quadrant, that's where we want to keep our focus. The burnouts are overworked, overstressed, overwhelmed, overly isolated, and they're frankly just over it. We need to give them more support. The rusty, disillusioned, disruptive, disinterested, disempowered, and they're dissed off with the world. Really? They just give up. And then we've got our player who's unhelpful, unproductive, unresponsive, unpredictable, and under the radar. Because they might think they're being helpful, but the truth is their actions are being very unhelpful. So we need to give them lots of feedback about that when we identify these behaviours. So now that you've got an idea of what they look like, the challenge for you is to map yourself and all the members of your team. Where do you see yourself lying? Where do you see your team members lying? And go through them one by one. Think about those descriptors that I've provided and work out where you think they live. Because when you've got a clear roadmap of where people lay on the spectrum, we can start looking then in future seminars about how to overcome some of these challenges that you face. All of this requires a great deal of resilience. And I've just realised that we've already taken 50 minutes of the webinar. Now, a couple of things. I've put this as role of resilience for women in leadership, but it's for everybody about our resilience. Would you prefer me to go into resilience, or I open the floor for questions from anybody who would like to talk about some of the information we've covered so far? Your choice. What would you like to do? Or do you have any questions? No? Okay. Just received one question. How do I broach these conversations? With honesty, authenticity, compassion, and empathy. But I'm not going to give you all the answers today because that's actually a full session that we're going to be looking at, which is lead in the moment, which is about how to have those tough conversations. I'll give you a whole set of tips, tools, and techniques for having that conversation, structuring it, the type of words to use, how we get people to own ownership for their actions, and how we get people to turn around. And it's very simple academically, but it's classically, as I referred to right at the beginning, with the head, the hand, and the heart. You'll need to practice it, you'll need to use it, and the technique will not, it'll take a while to get used to it. It sounds simple, but the application, the art of applying it is quite tricky. So that's why I've decided to put a whole session devoted to that, and very happy to do that for you as well. Um, One-on-one, if you wanted to email me post this webinar, I'm happy to hear any thoughts, suggestions, challenges, etc. that you may have had. But for the next, just for the next couple of minutes, because we're basically running out of time, I thought I'd quickly run through the role of resilience for people in a leadership role, particularly when you're one. It is about getting knocked down, but it's also about getting back up again. And no matter how much adversity you face, if you've got that ability to stand up and keep standing up and taking the punches, that's what resilience is all about. We can all lie down. We can all just say, oh, too much, but then we don't achieve anything. So it's about what do I do to make myself more resilient. For me, resilience is the perfect balance of optimism, acceptance, courage, and it's all wrapped up in a huge dose of humour. I think if we lose our sense of humour in life, we lose the point of being here. And as a leader, you can find many ways to find things quite quite humorous, find the funny side of things or the bright side of things. So optimism, it's about being focused. It's not about being the positivity. It's not positive. Being positive is part of it, but optimism is not positivity. They are quite different. Positivity is looking for the glass half full all the time. Optimism is about being determined and hopeful and focused and tough-minded and proactive and saying, look, something has happened. I can do something about this. There's always something you can do about it. It might not be the complete desired outcome you were looking for initially, but there's going to be something you can always do about it. Acceptance is saying, well, okay, stuff happens, and stuff happens on a daily basis, but I need to accept that, take ownership of it, be honest about it and realistic about it. I have responsibilities to keep going. So that's what's important with the acceptance. I'd like to show you, sorry. Focus on what you can control, not what you can't control. Oh, I'm so sorry. My voice is gone. I'll be back. Particularly as a leader, I find a lot of people spend a lot of energy, a lot of effort worrying about things they can't control. There's no point. Unless, of course, you like to get a headache by bashing your head against a brick wall. But I wouldn't suggest that. I don't recommend it. If you focus on what you can control, that's when you broaden your circle of influence. If you focus on the things that you can't control, you'll just live with frustration, basically. Courage is something that everyone wants. We all have it, and sometimes we don't know that we've got it until we're tested for it. But it's about saying, all right, if I've got a passion and I want to achieve, I need to carve my own direction. I need to work out what it is I want to achieve. and do that. And the humour, if we can't laugh at ourselves, who can we laugh at? So it is important to remember that humour plays a big part in resilience. When the chips are down, if you start crying and you're on one with me, or not literally crying, but that pity party, etc., then that just has an influence on people around you, particularly when we're in a leadership role. If we're always unhappy, cranky, finding life too difficult, then people around us will find that they will be exactly the same. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying for a moment that you won't have your down days or your moments of absolute feeling shattered, and you can throw your own pity party in the privacy of your own home. But when you get through that, then it's about, well, okay, let's pick myself back up again and find the brighter side or the more humorous side about what's just happened. So, your own resilience, and this is some of the quick tips on how to do that. Sorry, I just have to publish this one if I can. Not working for me. I just got a message from Peter saying, when you talk about resilience in the workplace, is it because it's a difficult workplace or may it be a sign that the worker is struggling? Both, Peter. Absolutely. Absolutely. We might be struggling ourselves as a leader, and we're wondering how resilient we are and how much more of this we can take. But it might be also too because you've got challenges in your organisation with the people that you work with. So again, that's going to come up in the webinar that we're talking about leading in the moment, how you can have that conversation. In the background, these are tips that you can work on for yourself, but when we start to look at the environment and if those conditions for success are not there, then we'll have those conversations about how we do counter that problem when we've got a workplace that's dysfunctional. There's going to be an article in the Splash magazine soon called The 9 Dysfunctions. I think I would recommend you read that because it goes into the sorts of behaviours and you will see that are dysfunctional and how that can create a very tense environment to work in. So very quickly, some tips for building your resilience. If there's a crisis, we get that, there will be, but don't avoid seeing crisis as insurmountable problems. There's always something we can do. We can choose to do nothing about it, but we can choose to do something. And if we work with people to get through those crises, as a leader, you'll show that your people, you're a safe pair of hands for them to work with. So for us, if I'm confronted with a crisis, I go, okay, what's the first thing that I can do? I don't go to the end straight away and say, well, there's a solution that I've got to get. I look at it and say, what is it that I can do step by step, bit by bit? What have I got to do to get to start addressing it? When we've got change, it's inevitable. The one thing that is for certain in the world is that it's always change is always going to happen. If you are one of those types that don't like change, it's a case of why. Asking the question why. What's going on? What needs are not being met? What can I do to learn to live with that change? In further webinars, we'll be looking at some of the reactions that people have to change and then how you can manage that and have that conversation. Create a strong support network. This is incredibly important. If you don't have a mentor in your life, could I recommend you get one? Because mentors are the people you go to when you've got problems you want to talk about in a safe, confidential environment. And my view is you could have 5, 6 mentors, but you want to know what you want to get out of each of those mentors. Also, have your friends, your social environment. Take time to enjoy yourself. Make me time for yourself. You need to have a good network there so that you've got people to talk to when you're feeling overwhelmed or swamped. Find a way to achieve your goals. As I said just briefly a moment ago, every little step counts. So just chip away, chip away, chip away. Do the easy ones first, and then move on to the more difficult ones. And by getting early success with achieving the simpler goals, it makes it easier for you to progress to the more challenging goals as we go through our work day and our work life. Be proactive. That's about not being reactive to everything. That's when I was talking about right at the beginning of the session, saying step back, take an objective view, take time out, look at the business and work on the business rather than working in the business all the time. Commit to lifelong learning. If you think you know it all, then that's a bit of worry. I have a philosophy that I'll never know everything, and I love learning, and I think you get so much reward out of learning and discovering new things and expanding your repertoire of knowledge. Nurture a positive view of yourself. You must learn to love yourself. Dear self, today I will shine. Dear self, I'm a good person. Face our fears. Fears are only what we think they are. False evidence appears real. That's what a fear is. So look it in the eye, give it a go, jump off the cliff, have a go at it, at the things that you hold yourself back from. Many times you find it's only a self-limiting belief that you think you can't do it, whereas in reality that you can. Keep things in perspective. You know, don't get bogged down in the detail, or don't get bogged down in things that you think are too difficult. Maintain your optimism. Again, as I said, you know what optimism is. It's not just about the world's a beautiful place. There's some horrible things that happen, but you can do start it. This is very important, taking care of your mind, your body, and your soul. You must make me time for yourself, particularly as a leader. Eating well, exercising, that all reduces stress and it reduces the effects of people with low resilience. I'm going to, in our next, write an article for you, probably for SPASA, about resilience and some of the health effects that low resilience can have on people. High blood pressure, kidney problems, obesity, there's a number of them. Learn the art of mindfulness. Now, I want to finish up with basically these next two slides. Learning the art of mindfulness is about going with the flow. If you constantly want to fight against things that you can't control, you will be using a lot of energy for nothing. Mindfulness is accepting what is and going with that flow and learning to do things about it as you go along, rather than fighting and trying to swim upstream. Back in yourself. Big thing, particularly for women leaders, then I would say 90% of women that I have coached have not truly believed in themselves and backed themselves. So you need to start backing yourself, and that's how you become more resilient. The old paradigm, very important. I can't change another person, but when I do, that other person changes. So if I change myself, I'll change my world. And that's what I'd like to leave you with today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know I've gone over time. I would welcome more feedback from you and some more questions at any point in time. And I can see some people typing now. For those of you who have to sign off, thank you very much for joining me. For those of you who would like to send an email, I think I can write something here to me. That's my email address if you would like to ask me any questions post the session. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a fabulous day. And I look forward to hearing more from you. And I hope to see all of you at the training program that the workshop that we're going to be advertising in Splash Magazine and on SPASA. Thank you.